Cookie decorating is all the rage now. Join me in this video and I'll take you through a sweet journey and share secret tips and tricks. Everything from knowing how to properly roll out cookie dough, cutting out your cookies so you have less of a mess and more cookies. I'll show you how to use royal icing and fondant to decorate your cookies. Yes, I said fondant. Great, so let's get started. First off, we'll have to preheat our oven. Most cookies bake at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, but refer to your recipe just to make sure that yours isn't different. We're going to need a few things to start. A rolling pin, your favorite roll-out cookie dough, flour, I call mine dusting flour, and it'll all make sense to you, I promise. A palette knife, mine is offset. So let's get rolling. Don't just throw flour onto your surface. Adding too much flour will dry out your cookie dough, or even worse, make your cookies chewy. What you want to do is lightly dust your surface. So remember, dusting flour. I see you're smiling. I'm using the 3/8 of an inch bars. This will ensure that my cookies will have the same thickness for even baking. When using the bars, the rolling pin runs along the edge of the bar and not the dough. Therefore, I have the same thickness. How great is that? Great, so now we have our cookie dough rolled out. Now line up your cookie cutters as close as possible to each other without distorting the cookie. Think of it as going on a 3-week trip to Europe and all you're allowed to pack is a pencil case. You're going to get as much as you can out of that little space, right? Any leftover dough can be re-rolled and repeat the process again. I like using my offset palette knife to pick up my cookies. I have less of a chance of distorting my cookie shapes when transferring them to my cookie tray versus picking them up with my fingers. Into the oven they go. Depending on your cookie recipe and how crispy you like your cookies, they can take anywhere from 7 to 12 minutes to bake. I like mine just golden brown. Just remember, all ovens bake differently, so keep an eye out on your cookies. Remove from oven and let them cool completely before we can decorate. Okay, great. Let's get decorating. First off, we're going to make some royal icing. McCall's has a royal icing mix. Just add water and you're ready to go. I'm using a stand mixer with a flat beater. Add the water to the dry mix and beat at a medium speed until your icing is snow white in color. The icing will form stiff peaks. They'll resemble snow peaks. This can take anywhere from 7 to 12 minutes depending on your mixer. Pick up your paddle. Does the icing curl? Great, it's ready. Well, of course we want to color our icing. I'm going to use the gel colors. When you first open up your colors, you'll need to remove the seal from the bottle. Notice there's a washer included. Don't throw this away. Replace it to the lid after you remove the seal. This helps prevent the gel from leaking. Add a few drops of color to your royal icing, a little at a time. We can always make it darker. Have a spray bottle filled with water on hand. And for the record, I only use water in this bottle. We're going to need to thin down our royal icing so we can decorate our cookies. Spray a little bit of water into your colored icing and mix. You'll need to add enough water so that when you count to 20, your icing has healed itself. When you cut through the icing, it should return back to a smooth consistency by the count of 20. Go ahead, set your timer if you don't trust me. This consistency is known as flooding icing. Once again, cover up your icing bowls with a damp, clean cloth when they're not being used. Oh, here's another tip. If you're not going to use your icing all in one day, then put it into a grease-free container with a lid. You don't need to refrigerate it, and it'll stay fine at room temperature. Just mix it up again before you use it. Okay, let's get down to the real fun now, decorating. You're going to need some disposable bags, your colored flood icing, sprinkles, I have the multicolored ones, nonpareils, mine are the little yellow ones, they're the teeny tiny balls, scissors, palette knife, yes, I'm using a smaller version of the offset, an edible food marker, toothpicks, a damp cloth, and pre-made, I bought these Royal Icing Sunray faces. When you're filling the bag, you want to open your bag and create a cuff. Think of it just going over your arm and fill it with the flood icing. No need to overfill it. You can always add more later. And trust me, it's easier to handle when there isn't too much in your bag. Now twist the bag, cut a tiny hole in the top, and let's get decorating. Outline your cookie, and while the icing is still wet, you can dip your cookie either into the nonpareils or use a spoon to scoop them out where you want them to lay on your cookie. Add a little bit of icing on the back of the royal icing transfer and adhere it to the cookie. The royal icing will act as glue once the icing has dried completely. Let's try to make a beach towel now. I'm going to use an edible marker just to draw out some lines. You can use these to make patterns or anything like that, just so I have something to follow. Now, I'm going to take my flooding icing and start filling in the section at a time. One color, and then we'll move on to the next color. Now, while my icing is still wet, take a toothpick and drag it through the icing and create a pattern. Add a little more icing to each end of the cookie and add sprinkles. I'm going to pretend that these are my towel tassels. Cute, no? Okay, so now you figured out royal icing. Let's move on to fondant covered cookies. This can't get any easier. I'm going to use the chocolate fondant because really, does anybody not like chocolate? And this one tastes like a Tootsie Roll. Need I say more? Take a little bit of fondant and knead it until it starts to soften up. Using your thickness bars again, this is personal preference, how thick you want your fondant to be, roll up the fondant as you did the cookie dough. If you feel that your fondant is sticking to the surface, dust your surface with either icing sugar or cornstarch to ensure the fondant isn't sticking. Now using the same cookie cutter you used to cut out your cookies, cut out a fondant silhouette. Using the spray bottle again, spray a fine mist of water on your cookie and adhere the fondant. Ta-da! You're done. How easy is that? I'm going to make some quick fondant embellishments using the pre-colored fondant. Taking a small piece of fondant, I'm going to say like the size of maybe a shelled hazelnut, roll it into a nice smooth ball and cut it in half. Roll those two halves so that you create a smooth ball and then elongate it into two log shapes. Lightly press to flatten just a hint the tops and set aside. Now I'm going to decorate using the heart-shaped cookie. Squeeze some of the flooding icing, very random pattern. Just remember to keep it just to one side of the cookie. Now using a food grade paintbrush, flatten out the icing. Don't worry, it doesn't have to look pretty. Now, while your icing is still wet, sprinkle some sanding sugar on the icing. I'm using what is called the coarse golden sanding sugar. Repeat on the other side using the blue flooding icing. Just skip the sanding sugar. Now, where the two icings meet in the middle, just fill up the seam with a little bit of the white flooding icing. This will give you the illusion of waves hitting the shoreline. Get it? The golden sanding sugar is the beach. Adding just a little details to my fondant embellishments and they become flip-flops. I think these are just really cute for any sort of beach-themed party. Before I forget, your royal icing cookies, you need about 12 to 24 hours before they're fully dry. However, your fondant covered cookies, no waiting time. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the link button below. Now, let me get back to the kitchen and bake some more cookies. Sweet regards until next time.